So, it has recently been. I keep on saying recently. It has recently been the mid-season patch for Overwatch 2, Season 4. And there was some very, 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 very big changes to the way that the game works. We're kind of, me and Mick had a bit of a discussion about, we're kind of unsure on whether or not this actually really changes the meta, if it just kind of like, it tweaks specific niche areas of the meta. Um, but, that's what we're here to discuss today. Has the matter changed at all from what's happened? I just thought it'd be a good idea to maybe just discuss what's changed and where and how and why. So, if we move over to here, so just like actually, let's see if this might be the best way to do it now, because I can get Epic Pen out too. Okay, so go to patch notes. Um, So I'd say like the big non-hero change is the respawn time for players is increased by 2 seconds from 10 to 12 while their team's forward spawn location is activated, which basically makes push a more fair version because then it essentially, if you've pushed right up to the enemy team spawn, it kind of gives them a chance to like on Esperanza now. It gives you a much better chance to get it into the midsection where you're not so disadvantaged. Because what used to happen was if the enemy team got a forward spawn, it essentially meant you had to win. If you're all the way back in your spawn, you sometimes had to win, 3 fights before you could even start then making progress on your own. If the enemy team was didn't stagger themselves and had a quick comp that could get back. Um, so yeah, but then we start getting into these big changes. So developer comments: these changes increase Junker Queen's frontline pressure by increasing her self-healing and offensive sustainability. We've also increased Jagged Blade's projectile size. So these are Junker Queen changes. So, first things first, more ammo in the gun is really, really big. It just essentially means that Junker Queen can be active in the fight for much longer. I think it's a little bit of a weird change and not very necessary, but also cool. The Jagged Blade essentially just makes it a little bit easier to land, which means that for people like me and for people who haven't been playing Junker Queen in a while, immediately the mechanic, like the having mechanics part doesn't really, because that nade can sometimes feel like a really big skill shot. So yeah, this is cool. I like this. Now this is where we start getting to the big ones. So now deals 40 impact damage. Now, um, essentially when Queen wasn't matter, they made a series of smaller changes to her. So when she killed a target, the bleed damage that was supposed, like all the health that she was going to get from the kills that she got, um, what actually would then she'd regain all of that health. So if you hit somebody with an axe and then they immediately blew up, so if you hit a Ryan with an axe and then he immediately blew up, all the health that he was going to need um, was then okay, sorry about that. So if you were to axe a Reinhardt, and I believe from Axe you get about 80 HP, and then he immediately died, you'd get that 80 HP back up. So now going on to this change here, Rampage now deals 40 impact damage, and now the wound damage is decreased, which I believe means that the amount of heals that you get from it is decreased, but that also means that if it's on a low target with an alt combo, from say now a Sombra, you could essentially burst down a bunch of people, meaning that Rampage is actually more free to kind of just go into the backline in a scrim environment, where if you were to just Rampage into the backline when you know you're gonna have guaranteed follow up from a team of people on a Sombra EMP, where they've already lost 40% of their HP, like on squishies, Um, I believe that puts them down to 80 HP, which means that one axe, so EMP Rampage axe, is essentially an instant kill. And if they're grouped up tightly, then that just means that it's just a free fight win. With 2 ults plus 1 ability. And then this is the big one. Adrenaline passive healing multiplier increased from 1.25 to 2 times dealt by wounds. So now the amount of healing that you get from from wounds is essentially plus 75%, I believe. So actually, I can probably go showcase this a little bit, really. So we can just go take a little bit of damage.
Is where I say it is.
Okay, so one knife
My hand needs a
nets
knife
us
in it.
60 healing.
You got too close,
One knife
didn't
nets
ya?
60 healing. Actually, let me just double check this now. Yeah, 60. Just from landing one
You're
singular knife.
scattered, mate.
I'm actually kind of scared as to how much one axe might get us. 148? And 80 healing from one singular axe.
Oh,
Okay.
the blood's all gone. Got something to kill.
Triple kill.
Right down.
Double kill.
Yeah, now let's go find
It's
a
only
singular,
buckshot.
one singular thingy. Training bot, and we're going to use our ult on it and see how much that builds us. It won't be any more than over like 100, to be fair.
Time for the reckoning.
Oh, I knew that was going to happen. Okay, alright. The specifics don't necessarily matter, but what matters is that that's heavily increased. And also, I don't want to have to build up to another ultimate just to send myself off the map again. But yeah. Potentially a Junker Queen meta, definitely now more ranked viable than she used to be, and potentially more viable than the Ramatra. Harissa gets a slight buff. Winston gets a slight buff, which could mean that Winston remains. Whoa. Which could mean that despite Junker Queen getting a buff, Winston could still remain in the meta. It's not the biggest buff, but it does mean that Winston has a little bit more impact on groups of people. And I just don't get why this is a thing, because Winston's actually been meta for 3 seasons now, I believe. But Wrecking Ball got the nerf. Effect duration for adaptive shields reduced to 7 seconds. I quite like that, because adaptive shields was what made him feel unkillable at times, and that wasn't fun. Now, this is the other big change. Echo's ult now costs 25% less. Her ultimate can now be built 25% quicker. Whereas you used to have it like maybe like it wasn't guaranteed to have it every other fight. Now it's almost guaranteed that a good Echo player that's playing well will pretty much have it every other fight. Maybe even every fight, to be honest, because with how quick Echo can farm, I mean, just a set of stickies onto a squishy, I'm pretty sure nets about 16-20% ult charge. I think that was before as well, so this might actually have completely changed that. So a good Echo, and obviously there's a poke phase in a fight, and Echo thrives at poking because there's no fall off on her damage. So Echo could potentially end up being a hero now where the ultimate is as throwaway as a pulse bomb, where there's no need for any sort of ult tracking or like ult planning with it. You can just use it every single fight. The ultimate generation decreased from 5.5 to 4 times while duplicate is active, which does mean now though that is a lot harder to then build your ultimate with Echo. Or what with while in copy with Echo. But it's a net buff overall because having the ultimate every fight of every other fight means that this duplicate uptime is just insane. Junkrat has a small buff, doesn't change anything. Anna has a small nerf, doesn't change anything in terms of her position in scrims, but does definitely change stuff in ranked a little bit. Imo cooldown, that gets a slight buff. Kiriko gets a higher elo rank buff, doesn't really change anything though. Lifeweaver gets a small quality of life change, and that's it. So, from everything that we know now, there is the possible for a Junker Queen meta because the current meta is dive, but now with these Echo as well. Why does the font keep changing? The font size keep changing. So now we have Echo. Change the color of that. So now we have Echo as well, who is also meta. So if you put these together, Echo can contest the high ground, which is what made Queen not good, was that Winston could access the high ground when Queen couldn't. But now Queen isn't diveable. Check out that way of showing this. So Queen isn't diveable, and now Echo can access this high ground. So on brawl maps like King's Row, we can now see the Queen. The possibility of a Queen where we have a Junker Queen and an Echo means that Echo has access to the high ground with a Kiriko, and a Kiriko can heal Echo because it's an off-angling DPS, and Kiriko's good at helping those and supporting those. And Junker Queen is good in brawl positions, which means that it's very, very possible now that we see a Junker Queen Echo meta on high ground contestant maps and a Junker Queen meta in scrims. Now we're discussing in ranked, it is 100% plausible that Junker Queen just becomes pure meta. But what we're seeing right now is the possibility of a Jotes meta, and I think there's a little bit of playtesting happening here. And if anybody remembers from the start of this project, my whole thing was about playing Junker Queen and making Junker Queen work because I knew there was going to be buffs coming to her eventually. So I have got some Junker Queen work to be doing, as Ram is now also falling out of the brawl meta potentially. Not confirmed. I am no oracle. Mick and Dots are no oracles. But this is my theory testing. This is my theory crafting. So we're going to test it in scrims either tonight or tomorrow night. And additionally, I'm going to be playing some Junker Queen in comp to see how I feel about it. But that is all. It's interesting stuff. And I'm really, really looking forward to playtesting it because I've missed Junker Queen being a possibility. Junker Queen matters are the best matters. I haven't played in a real Junker Queen meta yet, but the Junker Queen meta looked so much fun as a tank, and I think Junker Queen is a fun tank, and this really excites me. So, yeah.